What's going on, you guys? It's your Huggable Hipster here, and welcome back to the Casual Nerd. Happy New Year, happy everything. Welcome on into a new season, a new episodes, new everything, of funnier things, funnier questions, more in-depth situations that we're going to discuss. Coming in the first episode of the year, my good friend, hello, how are you?
Hey, so happy to be here, rocking with you. Happy New Year! Excited to see you.
Excited to see you.
It's always good to get a chance to hang out with you and get to chop it up and hang out and just talk about all the things. So I'm very excited to be here today.
I am so ready. And this is the part, we're actually talking about this off camera, but this is the part that's going to possibly get clipped and sent to Greg and be like, I'm embracing my inner Greg this year from Kind of Funny. For those of you who don't know, check him out. He's absolutely amazing. Him and Mike. I feel honored, by the way, that Mike follows me on Twitter. I sent him a message actually being like, want to be on the podcast?
He's a sweetheart. He's such a sweetheart.
Is.
Both of them are just like beautiful human beings. That whole crew is good people. So
hey,
I will do whatever I can to help make that happen, whatever ways I can.
I honestly need the chaos. I need just the abundance of loving chaos. Also, happy 10 freaking years to Kinda Funny. Kinda Funny. I don't know why I said it like that.
Kinda Funny.
It's Kinda Funny. You know what's
Shout out to Kinda Funny.
You know what's Kinda Funny? My accent is really Kinda Funny. No, never mind. It's really fun though to see like them just blossom and grow, because I've seen them for the past like 3 years, and I didn't even realize that they have been around for just a span of time that they have. It's amazing.
Yeah, that time has flown. And like, I remember them leaving IGN and starting that first week, that first year, and kind of getting their feet wet and kind of just remembering what that was like. And now, crazy studio, and just 10 years later, time is flying for them. So I'm happy for them. It's a hard thing, because you've been in the game for a long time too. Like, it is hard to sustain that amount of work for that amount of time. So shout out to them for that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so amazing to see how much they've grown and to see how much, like, they went from the time that I just saw them from being like, hey, guys, let's do this and let's do that, to just a full-on, we're going to be chaotic gremlin in the best way possible.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that is a perfect way to describe it for sure.
Oh my gosh, yep. I don't know how he would respond to me calling him, a chaotic gremlin, but we'll work with it.
He'll probably make a noise. He'll make a gremlin-esque noise. A gremlin-esque noise. I am sure is gonna happen.
Do not.
Also,
I swear, everybody who heard that, do not clip that.
Please clip that. Oh my god, that was so good. That was my favorite part of the show already. That was great.
You know what's gonna be good? That is like everyone's gonna be like, metal noise.
That's me every time I play Marvel Rivals at this point. Every time.
Every time I see a Starion.
I'm like, someone else picked DPS, damn it. What are you doing?
No way. It's like, or that sound that like the computer makes in Star Wars Outlaws.
Oh shit. That's great.
Binary noises. Oh man, this is already chaos. I love it. So the first topic that we're going to get into today is predictions, because apparently the gremlin noises are taking over too much. I want to know what your opinion is of where gaming is going to be this year, because we saw a lot. There was so much happening last year. There was a lot. For anyone who's been under a rock, we had massive layoffs. We had different things. Just studios getting completely crushed, unfortunately, by circumstances out of their control. So many different things happening. I want to know what you think of where gaming as a whole is going to. The trends are going to lean more towards this year.
Ooh, that's a good question. I think we will see more layoffs, which is not a great prediction, but I think that's going to continue to happen in an actual way. I think the industry still hasn't figured out how to kind of balance and kind of get out of that space to figure out what they can do to offset the potential of what that is. So I think, layoffs and folks losing their job is going to potentially be a continuing thing. I think GTA 6 is going to take up most of the year. Towards the back half of the year, because I don't think it's going to come out in the beginning of the year. But I think like GTA 6 is going to be the most talked about game of 2025 in a big way. I mean, I think games like Fable and other things like that are going to be big for folks who really care about those IP and about those particular games. But GTA 6 is going to be the monster that's going to just eat everybody else's lunch no matter what happens.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a thing.
If it's anything as massive as GTA 5, like that is the most popular game ever sold in the history of ever. And if it's going to be anything like that, then Rockstar is covered. Like for the rest of like their kids' generations, they're covered.
Yeah, like they won't have to make another game for another 10 years. Like that's the wild thing about them. Like it's weird. I downloaded GTA 5 last night actually because people were talking so much about GTA 6 and I was like, let me go back and see if I like this game. And weirdly I don't. Like I like most of it.
Yeah, I don't either.
But the way it controls is very old. So that's the thing that I'm like they will fix that part to kind of, be more aligned with the more modern audience in that way, but it is a weird game. Like that thing is going to be nuts. I think really quickly to talk about GTA 6, I think there's a really important, interesting thing about that game. Besides the cultural relevancy that it's going to have, and I think the amount of money it's going to make, which is going to be stupid. The thing that I'm most excited about that game is the fact that 3 years ago, I think it's about 3 years ago, they bought a lot of the folks who were doing role play servers, like a lot of that tech. And I remembered somebody else was talking about that, and I was like, oh yeah, like all the 5M folks that you saw and all of that stuff, like that stuff is going to get really integrated into that game. And I think that's going to be what is going to drive a lot of the post-launch stuff, because they usually take a while to get the multiplayer stuff out, but I feel like that's going to be integrated directly into the game in an actual way, and I feel like that's going to be huge for a lot of creators, be huge for a lot of the folks who really care about that content and really want to play in that space. Yeah. And that's exactly, like I think it's going to be really exciting to see what happens there, because they're going to have all of these versions of things you're going to be able to do in that game that's going to lean towards that. So those are just like two things that's in the whole of 2025.
It's funny that you mentioned GTA 5, because just last year I did a review on it because I played it for the first time. That was the first time I really dove in and played any Grand Theft Auto game ever. And I had such a love-hate relationship with it, because I feel like the story crafting is some of the best I've seen. It reminded me of Red Dead Redemption 2 in the way that everything was just so well crafted in the narrative design, so well done. But then there was one part, and I know people are gonna have a bone to pick with me, because they did whatever. I got like the ways in which I got called a pussy on Twitter. Holy shit! I went over with the game, and I got into the section of where there is trigger warning, the torture section.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I say this in all seriousness, I cried afterwards. It did not affect me in the best way at all. Yeah. After that scene was done, I put my controller down and I contemplated life. I just sat there in silence and I cried, and I cried. And I always update people on my progress with games, how I'm doing with them, where I'm up with stuff. And I told people that on Twitter, and they were like, God, what a fucking wimp. I'm like, oh gee, I'm sorry. You know what? I'm sorry that I grew up in a household where that stuff to me, I'm not desensitized to torture. Like, I'm sorry. Like it was chaotic.
I mean, but that's the thing though, right? I think the beauty, and I use that word with a big air quote, right? Is like the beauty of games is like that's what games are supposed to make you do, right? They're supposed to give you that space to feel things in a way that evoke emotion that you might not necessarily know are going to be there. Like I get shitted on a lot because I like BioShock Infinite, and I know people hate that game. People hate that game for a lot of different, because of the meta conversation about BioShock Infinite was that it dealt with race, but it dealt with race in a very kind of just like hand wavy way. Like it didn't actually like dig into the stuff in the ways that most people wanted it to dig into the conversations about race. And I have an understanding that like most games aren't going to do that conversation well, but as a person who is kind of just coming into the discussions around metaverses and kind of multiple, we talk about the multiple timelines all the time now, right? When we talk about content, right? Like that wasn't it was a thing in literature in a lot of different spaces, but it wasn't a thing that I think had that kind of cachet that we see with stuff that we saw in the Marvel universe with the multiverses and all those kinds of things. It wasn't really a thing that was deeply ingrained into the gaming space. And it was the first time I had really kind of sat with the idea of, oh my God, like that's as a concept, that's really cool. And I remember finishing that game and sitting there and watching the credits and being like, oh shit, that was cool, man. Like the doors are everywhere and you can walk through and you have multiple versions of yourself and all that kind of stuff. And I sat there and I was just like dumbfounded for like 30 minutes. My wife at the time, not at the time, she's still my wife.
Okay,
But at the time when we were still early on and we were still dating, we weren't married yet. And she came home and she saw me and she was like, "You're all right?" And I was like, "Yo, that was the best thing I've experienced in a long time." And it was good because again, it did that thing of like it evoked this emotion and it was thought provoking in a way that was important. I love the fact that you cried at that moment because that shows me that games still have a space where you are able to feel that.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing too.
Cool.
Where like the game evoked so many different things and made me so incredibly like it made me laugh like I've never laughed before. Whenever Travis called called Michael a hipster, I felt seen. As
the character
hipster.
The character of Trevor was so good.
Trevor, not Travis. Sorry.
Yeah, I forgot if it was Travis, but I think it was Trevor. I met him in real life at so Rockstar during their promotional tour. They did a full orchestra of all the music that was in GTA, and he was there. He is the weirdest looking, nicest man on the planet. He look. I mean, it's him. It's his face. It's him, right? He's tall and lanky and skinny and just like gangly and all this kind of stuff. But he is like the sweetest soul. Like he was such a nice dude, and it was like nuts because you were a little bit afraid to like talk to him because I was like, this dude is kind of crazy in this game, and in real life he's like the sweetest dude. So it was like a very cool moment to be able to see him and meet him and say hello and give him props for what was a really, I think, outstanding performance. Like I think everyone thinks now of like Troy Baker and all the usual suspects that we think of, but like the folks who did that work in that game kind of laid the groundwork in a really interesting way, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the characters were just so well done. I felt like they were real and tangible, and I could get a cup of coffee with them. I could actually like have a conversation, and that's one thing that kind of made me marvel at this game a little bit was that GTA 5 has some of the best narrative design I've seen in a game besides Cyberpunk and besides Death Stranding. Because it just puts you in that world and it forces you to make really uncomfortable choices.
Yeah, 1,000%. 1,000%.
Yeah, I do have to ask though, what is one game? It could be currently or it could be a game that you played previous. And when you were talking about BioShock, it's what made me want to ask this, that just has its claws into you. That anytime that you play a game, that's your standard, that's your measurement for how good it can be.
Ooh, damn. I mean, I'm a huge horror movie and horror game fan.
Let's go.
So like Dead Space 2.
Oh, okay.
Always comes up in my mind of like that was a game that just sits with me and was really, really good. Mafia 3 was really fantastic. That's the blackest game on the planet.
I love that. I love that. I haven't played it, but I love that, you know?
I call it that every time I talk about it. It is the blackest game ever. That game just sticks out with me for a bunch of reasons. Stuff that holds a lot of nostalgia for me was like, and this is where I sound like an old man, was like Dragon's Lair. That old, game with Don Bluth kind of, visual art style and stuff like that. So there is a ton of NBA Street Volume 2.
Oh yeah,
which is that soundtrack, because the game was fantastic and I love EA big stuff, but like that was like a seminal moment in my life where I was still in, how old is the game? I was probably like in high school or junior high school or something like that. And just like all that music was the music that I listened to when I would be on the subway going to and from work or going to school or whatever that, because I was like all hip hop music that was just like born for me. Like that was like the perfect time for golden era hip hop music. And it had every part of the soundtrack there. So like there's a bunch of stuff depending upon the mood, depending upon the idea, and depending upon the memory, they all kind of hit in very specific ways. Like, what was it? What was your moment when you had that moment? This is why I love gaming. It's that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's for me personally, if I'm as well a big horror person. I love psychological horror. So when I think like, oh, if I'm going to play like another game like Visage, for example, I'm going to think of it in terms of like, okay, does this come up as well as The Evil Within? That's always my baseline.
Ooh, yeah.
That's always my baseline. Man. Like, oh my gosh.
That game is so good.
And also Tango Gameworks is back, so we might get another Evil Within. Okay.
I mean, if they can figure it out. I mean, I saw the announcement that they got bought.
Yes.
And I'm so excited for that. I mean, we might get another Hi-Fi Rush.
Yes.
We might get another Evil Within.
I'm so excited.
I'm sad. The sad news was, did you hear about the conversation around EA turning down the next Dead Space game?
No, I did not. Why would they turn that down?
So the gentleman who helped to craft the original Dead Space, his name is right now just running out of my brain. But I have a really good story about him. Makes me want to look his name up while we're talking.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can find it. So he was like, hey, he had done Callisto Protocol. They had left and did Callisto Protocol. Callisto Protocol was kind of a failure. It didn't do well. And it wound up being something where I think most fans are like, man, we would love to see a new version of Dead Space, a more modern version of it. You know, you don't have to necessarily make it a sequel to 3, which everyone hated.
I was about to say.
Everyone hated it. Everyone hated it so bad. But it would be a game that I think a lot of people would be excited about, and people were really hyped for it. Oh, Glenn Schoenfeld. Glenn Schoenfeld.
Oh yeah, okay, I know who that is. Yeah.
So he basically, the story goes, he, after Callisto Protocol did his thing, he was like, hey, EA, I have a story or a version of Dead Space I would love to do, and they turned it down. They were like, we don't want to do another Dead Space, which is wild. And there's also other information around that too. Like, I did some work with the Dead Space remake team, and the conversations we had during the time that we were talking to the development team was like, it was really hard to get that remake done. Like, from a business perspective, like not even just like the technical parts of making the game, but like providing the ability to say like, oh, we want to spend resources on this to make this happen. So it didn't necessarily come off as a surprise that it didn't make it happen, but it made me really sad because I was like, Dead Space is like one of the best horror franchises on the planet. And for them to not want to like, that thing would print money easy. Like,
for a lot of people that would, and this is where I'm probably gonna irritate a couple of people. I didn't enjoy Dead Space that much at all. And that's the thing too, of where like I was seeing the story and I'm seeing like the monsters, and at the time when I was playing the remake, I was also playing the original to get an idea of what the original was like. So the original, for me, it held more weight than the remake because of just how atmospherically dense and just at times heavy it was. But in the remake, I felt like it didn't carry the same weight at all. Kind of like how it would be if, Resident Evil 1 remake from 2002 would be done today. I don't think it would carry the same weight.
Yeah, I think it's different. I think the thing that I liked about the remake wound up being more about the technical bits of it than the way they implemented the story. Because I mean, it's weird because like a remake, you kind of know where everything is going. Yeah,
that's true.
You're not going to get the surprises that you hopefully were going to get. But I think the technical parts of what they did with sound and the way they reformatted the ship, and one of the coolest things I think they never really got respect and props for was they had this system within the game where in a remake, you kind of know where all the enemies are going to wind up being. But in this version of it with the remake, it would spawn different enemies in different places.
That's what I noticed. Yeah.
And that was the thing that really changed it for me, because I don't replay games. Like, it's a very rare instance where I replay stuff. And that was the thing that I was like, oh, and it would change not even from like game to game, but it would like not from save to save, but it would be like, oh, you reloaded into that part, you died. Different stuff is happening. The lights would be different. The sounds would be different. Like that stuff. Those are the things that for me really changed the way that I looked at that specific game. But the question I have for you is, if Dead Space didn't do it for you, I know you said you love Evil Within. How are you on Silent Hill?
I loved Silent Hill. That's the way a remake should be done, I think. Because and another reason, and I think this is probably more accessibility wise, why I didn't like Dead Space, the remake, was because of the zero gravity areas. I get motion sickness very easily. So when I was doing a playthrough of that, I had to take so many different breaks in between because of zero gravity. I felt like I was just gonna like heal over, you know? For me, it was just like I really, really want, and I genuinely, for like people who think I might be shitting on the game, I'm not. I genuinely really wanted to enjoy my time with the game. It was just my brain was just not letting me. But no, with Silent Hill 2, I did an entire playthrough of that game on YouTube, and oh my gosh, I was trying to be so cautiously optimistic at first, but the way they redid Pyramid Head, the way that they redid certain sections of it, the Bulber team knocked that remake out of the park. The sound design was upped so much that it made it so immersive to go through. I loved the original. I love the way it was done. I love the way it was crafted, but they made the psychology and they made the story more intense with certain sections. There was an entire part of where it had to have been my favorite part ever, of where I was literally roasting Pyramid Head, because there was a part where I actually got scared, genuinely. And I don't get scared during horror games. I'm pretty much desensitized to a lot of it. But there was a part of where Pyramid Head just comes around a corner, and I got spooked so much that I just climbed back up a ladder. I was like, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm just going to stay right here. This is fine. And then you go down and you have to run like a certain way, and he's behind a grate. You're on the other side. I'm like, oh, look at the little Pyramid Head. He's just over there. He's over there.
Talking crap to Pyramid Head like you can't come get me. Oh man.
Exactly. It's just like, why do your gloves look like they just have 3 fingers? What's happening there exactly?
I need to play it. I'm trying. I haven't played it yet. I need to play it. I'm worried because my biggest issue with the Silent Hill series is the locked door versions, the locked door things.
Yeah.
And I hate backtracking in games. It is, and again, like I love the Dead Space series, and it has a ton of that in there. But for some reason, Silent Hill, when you have to backtrack and go get stuff and get the item this door is locked, it irks me so much. So I think that's the reason why I haven't gone back in, because I was like, I love that game, I love that series, but like that thing makes me want to throw things. I'm like, I don't want to deal with that and have to go and I gotta go over here now and go door. I hate that part, so I gotta figure that out.
No, I completely understand that. There are just moments in the game where I was just like, wait, I forgot this. Shit.
Right. That's the part, because I don't have like muscle memory for those games anymore.
Yeah,
like
same.
I don't go back and like, I know where everything is and I know exactly where the items are. Like I don't have that. So like I'm playing it basically like I'm playing it again for the first time, and certain parts will come back to you. But like for the most part, like you throw up a locked door and it kills my progress, and I gotta go wait and do this other thing. I'm like, fuck you, man. I don't
Same. Do That's how I felt during part of it, because there was a moment. I think they put in a new puzzle during part of it, and I thought to myself, why? What? Oh, okay. Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Right?
And I was
like I feel like we're past
story
that.
mode, and I felt so old at that point. And I'm just like, I turned 33 this year. I want to relax.
Right.
Like I'm done with this shit.
Yeah, I'm twice as old as you, and I'm like, shit. At this point, I'm like,
wait, no, you're not.
Geez. I have you by. You said you're 33.
No, I'm 32, but I'm going to be 33 this year.
You'll be 33 this year.
Yeah.
I will be 47 this year.
Skincare now. Come on, cough it up.
That's what happens when you're not a terrible person. You don't age like that.
On my drink, my guy.
Terrible people age badly. That's why we're not aging.
Crumbs. I'm sorry, what?
Terrible people don't age like that.
I want to know which one, if you are an achievement hunter, which one did you love so much that you were so close to platinuming?
Ooh, that's an interesting one because I am not an achievement hunter. There's a game that I'm trying to do really well in, and it is not happening well. It actually circles back to the conversation about Glenn Schoenfeld and the company he's worked on. There's a game called Redacted.
Oh,
that is in the world of Callisto Protocol, but it's a top-down isometric twin stick shooter. But the cool thing about it is, so imagine if Hades was mean. Was mean to you.
It isn't
actively not by its mechanics, right? Because Hades and its mechanics are mean to you. But like you're like in an asylum. You're in this basically you're in the world of Callisto Protocol lives in this it's in a prison or an asylum. And the thing that you have to go do is you're trying to get out of the space and you're trying to get to an escape pod. You have all these other inmates that are in the space who are also trying to get to the escape pod. So imagine if you were playing Hades, but you were playing against AI characters who are racing to get to the end of the game alongside you. So you can fight them. You can try to lay traps for them. You can try to do all these things that are trying to impede their progress. When you first meet them, you get an introduction to them, and they talk shit. But it's various people. Like there's an android in there. There's a dude who's like a janitor who's in there who talks crap.
That's so cool.
There's a therapist in there who talks shit to you.
Oh no!
Oh no! It's wild. Like there are so many different, like really cool, interesting characters in this world. And the game is hard. I have not beaten this thing yet. I've not made a run where I've completed a run yet. And it is driving me crazy, but it's so much fun. It's a game that I think people should be checking out. It's like one of those like hidden games of the year. Like people didn't pay attention.
That's fair.
Didn't get a lot of love. But like that's the game right now that I'm like, man, if I can get that one run and beat it once, I will feel, gratified in that way for sure.
Yeah. Then for me, I think it's interesting because I'm not a platinumer type of person. I think the only other game I platinumed was, I think it was Neverending Nightmares, and it's an indie game. It has the art style of Junji Ito. I don't think he was someone who drew it, but it was a really good game, and it was really easy to do, but it had really like a lot of philosophy underpinning and everything. But the one game, and I platinumed my very first Souls platinum Elden Ring last year.
Nice.
And I platinumed the entire thing, and I went back and I thought, well, there's nothing else for me to do. This is when something new coming out. And I went over and I saw, okay, Night Rain is coming out. This is great. This is really exciting. But also, I'm going to have to go through this thing now again and spend more time like I did with Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh, yeah.
Universe. And that's another game, too, by the way. That sucked the soul out of me in the best way possible is Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah. That game was great. I mean, I think a lot of people who are like excited about what that game can do. I mean, it was such a thirsty game too. Like everybody was thirsting after everybody in that game.
Having sex with a bear? What the
I was like, I love y'all, but like y'all got some things to work out in your therapy sessions.
That's
the succubuses and the mind flayers and all the things. And I was like, y'all are thirsty for all the things.
I just found out last week that you could actually do it with a mind flayer in the game, and I'm just like, what the is this? How? What? And I'm desperate, but I'm not that desperate. Jesus Christ! Like, wow. Like I'm not judging, but also I'm kind of judging.
We listen and we don't judge. We listen and we do judge. Yeah.
We listen and we don't partially judge. There are a lot of discussions that still need to be had in gaming, obviously. There's a lot of important discussions that we still need to be having. What are the discussions that you want to see happening this year in gaming?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think I think, and this is going to get into a little bit of the political side of it. I think the biggest thing I want to see is like, how do we treat the frontline people? And what I mean by that is, there's this big pushback against DEI. There's a big pushback against critical race theory. There's a big pushback against women, LGBTQ folks, like all the layers of folks who are marginalized people in the space. And I've come to a really interesting turn on that, where at first I used to be like, we need to put up a fight against those folks, and we need to figure out a way to combat that, and we need to find a way to push back against those voices in an interesting way. Because a lot of those folks, when you really dig down, you dig one layer deep inside the onion, a lot of it is bullshit.
Yeah.
Alongside that, a lot of it is based on lies, right? It's based on misinformation and not truths, right? And the biggest cry from a lot of those folks is, we don't want to buy the games that all of you modern gamers, woke folks are making. And at first I used to be really upset by that. And then there was a really interesting moment that happened actually very, very recently around the CEO of Arrowhead, who makes Helldivers 2. And he kind of came out and had a statement that was basically like, we want to make games that are popular. We don't really want to add political commentary to the games that we make. And a lot of those folks felt like that was a win for them.
Interesting.
What I am hoping for is a discussion I think the industry needs to have, and I think studios need to have, and I think players and community folks need to have, is, why are we fighting so hard for them? Why are we fighting so hard to embrace that in a tangible way, right? So like, as I put on my marketing hat, as a person who does that work, and a community manager hat that I wear in my day-to-day job, the thing that you're trying to do is you're always trying to increase as many people as you want to come play your game. You're trying to get as many people to come into the front door, to listen to what you have to sell, and to bring joy to them with the game that you're making. These folks are raising their hands really loudly and proudly and saying, we don't want to play anything. We don't want to buy anything. We don't want to embrace any conversations that these games are trying to broach, even if they're even the smallest versions of those things. Usually not big like billboards of like, we like X, Y, and Z. A lot of those games don't even do that. Why are we fighting so hard to embrace those people who have decided they don't want to play the game? Like, they don't want to be in the space with us. So what I mean by that is, this is the hope that we triple down on those kinds of the DEI parts, the diversity conversations, the discussions about gender, and discussions about, things that are in those games that are speaking to a much broader swath of the people who are playing, which we know is in that space. Why should we have to shrink ourselves and shrink the messaging for the world that we want, because those folks have no idea about what they actually are trying to accomplish? We shouldn't have to do that for them. And it's the thing that we shouldn't need to do. We should just continue to make the stuff we want. And again, there's a bigger conversation about like, are those things marketable, and are those games failing because of these messages that are in them? There isn't any empirical evidence that shows that. And we're adjusting for people who have said that they don't want to participate.
Yeah,
so I'm like, cool, don't participate. Go over there.
There's no need to like include them if they don't want to be included. That's fine. They don't have to be. And we can use Dragon Age as a perfect example, actually, I feel like, because when I was playing through it, I was seeing inclusion. I was seeing, the developers actually going out of their way to make sure that in the character creator with Tosh, with so many of the characters, that like, even when you go into the room, there's a section of where you can look into the mirror, and if someone is trans, they can actually set what they want to be as trans. And I think that's beautiful. And there's so many like, did I have my issues with the game? Obviously, there were there were dialogue issues, there was stuff like that. But I feel like some of it was trying to copy what Baldur's Gate 3 was trying to do, and I feel like that's a very appropriate conversation to have on the matter. But at the end of the day, they were actually going out of their way, not in the perfect way, but they were still trying to make a point and go out of their way to make people feel included.
And I think that's the main driver for me, right? I think when I have talked to folks on game teams that I've worked on, and talked to developers, through Spawn on Me for the past 10, almost 11 years now, the thing that I hear across the board is we are making games for everybody. We're never making games just for one section of the community. But the folks who are the most mad are the ones who see that and not even say that's not for me, which is what adults will do. Adults will say, okay, fine, this is a thing that I don't like, but it's not for me. Those folks who are cosplaying as adults will say, this is a thing that needs to die. It needs to go away. It shouldn't exist. Which I think is a very different sentiment in the way you think about not only inclusion and equity and all those things, but like we as a gaming community don't do that really. Like that's a foreign thing that has been very recent, right? So I think that's a big conversation that I would love to see happen in 2025 is like if we're going to share a space with people who are doing this in our whatever however you feel about that angle around games, why are we championing their dollar in that way?
Yeah.
Why are we seeking approval of people who hate you? Or people who have actively said they don't want to work with you. They believe that developers are lazy. They believe that all of those people who are making those games are people who shouldn't have jobs and shouldn't exist in a space. Why are we specifically not talking to the people who actually want to be here and actually want to be a part of the community, actually want to be a part of our circles of, not only consumers, but gamers and people who want to enjoy and find joy in the content. Now you can find stuff in there that you might not necessarily like. There was a perfect example about Dragon Age. And I think anyone who's paying attention and who can critique a thing reasonably will say that game had some ups and downs in it. And that's reasonable. You can critique those things easy way. But the other version of that is like, these things shouldn't exist because I felt they were bad. That doesn't happen in any other space except for gaming. So I think that's one thing that we need to figure out in a real way. And it's a conversation I've not seen a lot of people who are at the top of these spaces and the tops of these companies really spend time to say anything, except for when they did it at the Game Awards some years ago, when we saw Reggie Fils-Aimé and we saw Phil Spencer and we saw Sean Layden, who were the tops of the big three, go out on stage and say, we don't want this toxicity in our space and we need to fix it. We need to have another one of those. And I think that's important.
It really is. And that's the thing too of where like I feel as if so many companies just want to, and this isn't meant as an insult by any means. I mean this with all due respect, but I feel like companies need to stop burrowing their head in the sand and be uncomfortable for a little bit, because you need to be uncomfortable to get to the root of what is causing certain things. And there are so many people who are conversing in bad faith just because they feel like they have some power complex that they want to meet and argue, and it fills their quota of I stuck it to the man for the day, So I feel like a lot of these companies need to be able to put their money where their mouth is and say, okay, you want to have these conversations? Let's have these conversations, but we're going to do it in good faith. We're going to do it not on your terms, usually. Yeah. We're going to do it on the terms of seeing improvement rather than separation.
Yeah. And I think the last point I'll make towards that, I think, is we have to stop lying to people. And what I mean by that is there's an idea that all conversation and all ideas are equal and that they all have the same kind of worth and merit. And I've been in this space for 13 years. I've the foundation of our show has been around inclusivity and equity and building up and spotlighting people of color and folks in marginalized spaces. So I've seen all the conversations over the many years that we've been talking about it. And the gripes that these folks are bringing up aren't real. Like they don't actually have any merit. Like if you were to say, hey, I'm going to build a marketing campaign around what they are saying they need, you couldn't. There's no way to do it, right? It's like, oh, let me build a marketing campaign around us hating women. Who's doing that? No one's doing that unless you're building stuff in the manosphere, that stuff. If you're building stuff that's like, I hate gay people, I hate trans people, is that your marketing campaign? Because that's what they're putting out. That's the fundamental foundational part of what the ethos of that conversation is. It's not about, oh, I want to see these things change because they are affecting me and I don't want to hear about politics and stuff. And I'm like, that's cool, but like at the end of the day, you're sharing space with everyone. And if you can't understand that you're sharing space with everyone, you're not an adult.
Exactly.
Right. So I think I want the industry to stop lying. And I know it's extremely hard because of the financial layers that go along with it. Right. There is this feeling that if the mob comes after you, it's going to tank your game. And I'm sure that has happened to some folks. I think I will not discount that there is enough voices on the internet to build up enough animus to be able to do some work like that. But we need to make sure that we're paying attention and also keeping the folks who are doing that work in the front lines, the community managers, the social media managers, in good spaces and not throw them under the bus because we have a whole bunch of people who say mean things and make up stories.
Yeah, a perfect example is actually what Liana went through whenever things was going on with Bungie and with the Fallout TV show and everything, and a lot of and I feel bad for her because a lot of the time you saw that she was just trying so vehemently hard to keep things in good faith, in good practices, and the company I feel like just no offense to them, just kind of threw her under the bus and just let her out there to pasture, and I'm like, this is so incredibly unfair for employers to do just because they don't want to get in hot water with their consumers.
Yeah, and there's a layer of that too. And again, last point, I keep saying last point, is we have to understand that people are humans, right? Like, you're allowed to have a bad day online as a part of your job. You're allowed to pop off I believe you're allowed to pop off at some point if you're getting that kind of stuff. Yes, you should get off the internet immediately so you don't pop off. But if you do, you should be given some grace from the companies that you work with, right? Even though the internet will take that and run with it and make all these other things about it. And yes, there is some financial repercussions that come from that. There has to be a space where we're giving humans the ability to have emotions. If you're going to put them out there in the front line to be like, you're going to eat all of this grossness that you have to deal with. Yeah. You either have to pay them really, really well so they don't give a shit. They could just be like, I don't care. Or you have to, like I'll tell people like, look, I will do the work of being a bullet sponge for that stuff. Technically, metaphorically. But like, you got to pay me really well to do that work.
Yeah.
Right? So like, if you're going to pay for the therapy, I need some money to pay for the therapy. Right? So like, hook me up. So that goes back to the larger conversation that you asked and the question that you asked of like, what do I want to see in this year? And what are going to be some important discussions that we as an industry need to really dig into?
So you guys, for one of the last things that we're going to be doing, and I think you know where this is going to be heading, Kahlief, we are going to be doing a roasting session. And I have to actually give kudos to Kind of Funny, Greg in particular, because he's fantastic at roasting people lovingly. And I want to also give a shout out to Mike because I will be embracing his Chaos Bunny energy to roast lovingly my friend Kahlief and vice versa, of course.
Yes.
Any words that you want to say before we get into this?
I'm scared. It's so hard to roast you. You're such a wonderful human being. This is going to be... I feel like it's going to be a short segment because I suck at this.
Short segment. All right.
I feel bad.
I have to think of one really quickly because you're very hard to roast. So you go first. Because you're the guest. I mean, you kind of got to go first.
I would appreciate next time if you're going to copy my color scheme that you don't steal the pink that I have gotten first.
Okay. You know what? I really see the pink. I love it. But also, I feel like that was the only one that was available. Apparently, because that's all I see you wearing.
Okay, that's reasonable. Okay. It is amazing that we have met. It is cool that we are friends. But also, if you're gonna steal someone else's shtick and be an Ariel, You got to give it back to Little Mermaid before you talk to other people and try to get at people first.
So I just came up to the land to soak it up, okay? That's all I was trying to do. And also, if you're going to make an award, you might not want to make it that looks like a big fart, okay? Looks like someone had to say, "Oh, sorry, excuse me for a second. I gotta leave the room."
It does look like a fart clap. I can't front. If you look at it really funny, it looks like a fart clap. I can't be mad at that. Okay, fine. That's reasonable. But if you're going to also have a PS5 on your desk, at least get the new one.
Spooder,
like
man.
This one.
Oh,
you
man.
have an old PS5. That's like a shitty. That doesn't even count. That doesn't even count as an actual roast.
Yeah, but you know what? If you're going to have a PC, you might at least want to turn it on. So just
wow.
in the background.
Wow. Now I feel like I gotta turn it on just to not. The funny thing is, there's a GIF on it that was just about our friend and some hammers. There's a GIF on it. That's right. That's that thing.
I do have to say something nice though. People say that you can't cook, but you're roasting me right now.
I mean, look, if there was anyone who I would take the roasting from and feel blessed to have gotten it, it would be you.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It would be you.
Oh man, and I do absolutely love your headphones because they are balling right now. Honestly,
I get so much crap for these headphones. People are like, "Oh my." I have the funniest thing. Yes, because it's like the first thing people will try to do when they try to roast you is try to emasculate you, and I'm like, I have pink headphones. I have the keyboard and the mouse. What do you want from me? I have the whole set.
Good color. Like honestly,
it's a really good color.
Yeah, and honestly, like if you want it to look like a highlighter, job well done.
Right? Thank you. I'm trying to make sure that I am the one who is making sure that all of your notes are properly highlighted.
Exactly. I see, now I can just picture someone flipping you over and be like, choo, choo.
I mean, look, all the people who get mad at me for that stuff, for me looking like a highlighter, most of those folks can't read anyway, so I don't know why they would be upset.
This is true.
At me looking beautiful in pink and black. It's fine.
Again, people cosplaying as adults.
Cosplaying as adults. I want that to be the thing. I'm going to get that as a tattoo. I am not cosplaying as an adult.
Just to get
actually an adult.
Just get it on the back and you can say, "You can kiss my behind," and that's what they see as they're leaving.
Oh my god, that's a whole nother conversation. But that's a whole other discussion of the internet and how they try to mess with me.
Actually, I'm just noticing right now because you do have like the pink and black getup where you have like pink here on the shirt, the pink glasses. Yeah. This has become your branding at this point. I love that actually. All roasting aside,
I look like the worst version of Brett the Hitman Hart.
No, you don't.
The pink and black. The funny thing is like the color. The camera's not catching this right. This is all red.
That's all red.
But it looks pink. It's the camera. The camera makes it look pink. I don't know why. It's whatever. Either way, it's fine.
Oh my gosh! You see, this is like the shortest roasting session in history.
I can't roast you. You're too dope.
Like Frank Sinatra.
It's like me trying to lie.
Frank Sinatra. Yeah, and D-Mar would be so proud. So proud.
See, this is what happens when you're good people. When you're a good person, it's hard to roast you.
It's like, yeah, you have that one thing, the thing and the thing.
Oh, look at you helping the homeless, you dirty, terrible person. Like what? Like it doesn't work that way.
Well, what was that one thing from Home Alone of where it was like, "Merry Christmas, you filthy animal"? It's like,
yeah.
It's like, look at you. It's like, oh God.
I mean, the thing that people could probably roast me about is like my love of terrible horror movies. But that's it.
The same though, because I love Morbius. I love getting down, having a little morbid time. Like that is.
Oh my God. Oh, that deserves a talking to. That deserves some conversation.
I think it's so good. Jared Leto is so good in that movie, though. He's so good. And I'm not just saying that because I'm attracted to older men, but that's another story entirely. Just push that one aside.
That's hilarious. That's funny.
No, because I'm noticing a trend, and my dad noticed it too. We were all sitting around watching Spider-Man: No Way Home. Because it's an amazing movie. You guys should watch it if you haven't. It's incredible. I love it. Andrew Garfield is my favorite Spider-Man. And I saw him come up on the screen and I was like, he's just dreaming. He's everything. And my dad was like, "You know how old he is, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, he's 40. The problem is, what?"
but that's a decent range for you at 33, 32?
32.
32?
Yeah.
That's a decent range.
Yeah.
Like, I had somebody the other day, they were like, Kai, at this age, how young would you date if you were single? And I was like, at this point, like, I couldn't go past anything younger than 35. It would be weird for me. Because then at that point, I have debt older than the person that I'm dating. And that's not good.
You know, oh my God, no, I have like $70,000 of time.
I had the running joke in my house is like, my wife is like, you know, if we were ever to divorce, I know you would find some young thing in the gaming space to go talk to. And I was like, the first thing I would say is like, I love you, dear, but I have that person probably has. I'm older than their debt. We probably have I have debt older than you. Is a line that I would have to say, and it would be true. It would actually be true.
I have cheese that's older than you in my fridge.
I have bills older than you.
You know what's really funny though about this is that some of the references that we make, I know younger people are going to watch this and be like, what the fuck are they talking about?
Oh, they won't know. It is now we're in Gen Beta. So think about that. There are people who are being born this year who are now Gen Beta kids. I was like, I posted online the other day the first console that I ever played.
Oh wow, yeah.
And someone was like, "Yo, you need to be in the old folks home." And I was like, "That's reasonable because it isn't old. It's 1983."
That's not old. For me, at least, that's not old.
That's what I'm saying. But like that console, like if you look at it, what it played, it is like dots on the screen, and they were like, "Oh my god!"
What's even funnier though is that I've gotten back into collecting cards for Pokemon and everything, and it is so strange to see millennial parents who are my age handing it down to their kids, and now you see them at card shows. You see them at like passing it down. It's so sweet, but also why? This used to be us when we were kids, and we used to trade the Charizards and all that. Yep. It's so sweet and it's so endearing, and I love to see it. But it's so also like, I don't know. It's jarring to see like time going on, and my God, it's crazy. It's wild.
The thing that is funny is hearing younger people talk about it as old school, and I'm like, just throw me in the ditch now. Just get me out of here. Just put me away. Get the AARP cards together and get me out of here because I don't want to know what you think is old school. That was like my childhood. Ugh.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like the slap bracelets. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
God, and like the thing, like there was a headband back in the day. All the girls. You'll know, 90s kids.
I remember.
Where it looked like teeth, and that was traumatizing. Like, I'm seeing all of these older movies now. Like, I'm thinking to myself, how did I think this was good when I was a kid?
What was the last one that you saw that didn't hold up well?
My Best Friend's a Vampire from 1984.
Ooh. That's interesting.
Yeah, it was good. It's still like somewhat okay, but also the lines are just so cheesy. Like, what are you? And he was like, I'm a vampire. He's like, no, but really, dude, you like flu and stuff. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think. Oh God. What was it? Because I did. So I'm a weirdo because I missed a lot of the stuff that a lot of like the seminal movies that I think a lot of American kids watched when they were younger. So like a lot of Disney stuff I never watched. I was probably, I should have been in therapy because I was watching horror movies when I was way too young to watch that. And I was like, you know, like I was watching Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween, all that stuff when I should have been watching Disney movies and that kind of stuff. But it was like, oh man, what was it? It was something that I had never seen, and this is going to sound terrible. I'd never seen Nightmare Before Christmas.
Okay, that's fair.
And then I watched it the other night with we were just like high watching it, and I was like, I don't understand why people like this. What?
You had to have been there.
I was like, why? I was like, there's no blood and guts in this.
Yeah,
she's like, it's not supposed to be. I was like, well, that's not fun then. There's no blood and guts in it.
You know what's funny though is that the first horror movie I ever watched when I was 10, keep in mind,
Yes.
The movie It.
Yes.
Yeah, that
so
gave me
good.
Oh my god, it gave me nightmares. It's the reason why I hate clowns.
I watched Creepshow when I was young.
I loved Creepshow. Creepshow was fantastic. It was
Creepshow is my favorite.
That and Goosebumps. Goosebumps was fantastic.
Yes, a movie that was a kids movie that was probably more for adults, but was very good. Was Little Monsters
yes.
with Fred Savage that people forget. And that joint had like the dopest soundtrack too. Like in a weird way. There's like a Billy Idol song at the end of it.
Yes. Oh my god, I forgot about that.
That song is fire. I don't care what anybody says. That song is dope. Like that was like there's so many, and I saw House was on the other day.
Oh my gosh, I remember that.
Oh yeah, we need to have a conversation just about horror stuff.
Yeah, you guys, you gotta understand. Like this is the '90s. We're just in our own little world right now.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Oh my god, I even remember like, did you ever have that moment when you were going to sleep on the couch or something, and you would fall asleep to like love songs of the '80s, and that would pop up, and that would always just be like what you would fall asleep to.
Oh, it was the worst because you'd wake up to that stuff and you had to just watch like all the terrible stuff you weren't supposed to watch. So I was like watching like Friday 13th, the series, and like Freddy's Nightmares when that was a thing on TV, and Tales from the Dark Side and all that stuff when I was little.
I remember MTV showcased the movie Bones, and that was the first time I heard the word
Yes.
Like, oh my god, my dad was so mad at me. He was like, I was like 13 at the time, and I wasn't supposed to be watching like TV like during like school hours because I was homeschooled right before I went into high school. And my dad was like, "What is this movie you're watching?" I was like, "It's with Snoop Dogg. It's really good. It's called Bones." I loved it.
Oh, it's so good. It's so yeah. We could talk about horror movies forever.
Yeah. Okay.
So many good movies.
It leads me to ask you, what was the first proper anime you watched when you were younger? Then.
And like anime. Vampire Hunter D was the first one.
Okay.
It was the first one I saw. And there was all the bad stuff that all the young men were trying to get you to watch. They were like, "There's tentacle porn in here." And I was like, what is that? And then you're like, oh, that's what that is. Oh, okay. I shouldn't be here.
That's unhygienic.
That's not right. How does that work? That's terrible. That's not how bodies work.
That's not how bodies work.
But it was Vampire Hunter D, and then Akira after that, and then interestingly enough, I didn't know that like. I mean, because they were like Americanized versions of anime, basically, which was like Silverhawks, which was that TV show, which is basically an anime show. There was like two other ones that were like that. Like Robotech was another one. So like I didn't know those were anime when I was watching them. I was like, oh, these are just cartoons. But then you find out later on, like, oh, that's actually like anime. But like Vampire Hunter D was the one that I remembered and know. Oh, this is from Japan, and this is a thing that you should watch. So like that.
Whenever I was watching Pokemon, because I've started the whole Pokemon craze in 1999, and I don't want to hear in the comments, yes, I'm old. I am. To this day, I didn't consider it basically an anime until one of my friends was like, oh no, it technically is actually an anime because it's from Japan. Right. It's in that entire subsection, even though it was for American, children and everything like that. It was more so marketed back in the day as a cartoon because they didn't want to get into the whole differentiation between anime and cartoon, all that kind of stuff. Yep. So that was one of the first ones. And then the second one that really stuck with me and really got me into anime was Hellsing.
Ooh, okay.
I love Hellsing. It was the first proper anime I watched on HBO when my parents were asleep and they didn't know what was going on. And then I got into, what was the other one? It's like 4 or 5 years ago, Blue Exorcist and Fate's Stay Night was the other one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm fairly new into anime. Like 2020 during the pandemic was when I watched a majority of my anime.
That makes a ton of sense. I mean, it's funny you bring up MTV stuff because, like, a cartoon that I didn't think was anime until you look at the visual styling is Aeon Flux.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I remember
Like Aeon Flux has is super anime vibes. But no one knew what anime was when at least on my end of the country, we were not paying attention. But Aeon Flux was like that cartoon that I was like, what is this?
Oh yeah. Yeah, and
this thing is wild.
And then in high school, there was like such an influence of where like, oh, you had the anime kids, and then you had like the emo, like, you know, punk rock kids and everything like that. I was kind of that mixture, and you can tell me what yours was after this, but mine was kind of a mixture of like anime and hip hop and rap, because that's what I was really into, besides like the emo and grunge and everything like that, because East First versus West Coast was such a big thing in the 90s and 80s and everything like that. People like just underestimate how important it was culturally.
Oh, it was a huge thing. Like it was like we had, it was funny because it bled into other things that were a part of the culture too. Like, I mean, all of that stuff really poked at the like the what you dressed in you know, what you dressed up as and stuff. Like I remember very specifically when starter jackets became a thing, and weirdly, like, New York kids would get Raiders jackets, and you know, like, oh, you got to like, because the sports layer was a part of it, and the kind of East Coast West Coast hip hop thing was a part of it. I mean, in terms of the like cartoon parts of it, was always like Voltron and Thundercats,
yes,
and all of that stuff.
And then you would have like some random guy having Snoopy on his jacket for some reason.
And yeah, and that kid was the weirdo kid, because you're like, why do you have Snoopy on your jacket, bro? Like, what is this business? Yeah. That was the thing. It wasn't like you were a weirdo. It was like, oh, you no Florida starter jacket. Oh, you got a Snoopy jacket. Like, who would you go with a Snoopy jacket?
What's interesting though about it is that like that was around the time for high school for me, was around the time I also was introduced to Eminem, because once I found Eminem, I was like, that's it. I found my music. I love it, because I was mostly like emo and grunge, and then it was hip hop and rap.
Oh God, I was in college, my first year of college when Eminem came out, and I used to host a radio show in our college radio station, and we would get records from all the record stations around New York City, and it would we would like spend a day. We'd go to like Hot 97, we'd go to back in the day what was WBLS, and go there and like, hey, whatever records you don't want, can we have them? And we would take them. And there was one record that we all sat around and we were like digging through stuff, and it had no words on it. It was a white label record, and it was Eminem's first album, like his mixtape and then his album, and that thing shut the station down. Like, we all sat there in what we called the main studio and listened to it for the first time. It was like, who the fuck is this kid? And they were like, oh, this is one white kid from Detroit. And we were like, who is this kid? And it was such a dope moment, because it was like discovering one of the biggest artists that we didn't know was going to be one of the biggest artists on the planet.
Yeah.
We had a couple of those moments where we had that.
You know what's funny, though, is that so many kids who are just now finding his music are like, oh, this stuff is racist. This stuff is anti-woke. This stuff is this, and that. If these kids had listened to what his original stuff was, they forget about any of it. They would be triggered so much. Oh my god.
Oh my god. Like, I mean, it is one of those things where this is where I don't want to sound old. You have no idea. Like, everyone is soft now. But like the stuff that he was saying on his mixtapes and the stuff that he was doing on that first album. But the thing was, like, he had such a beautiful way with words.
Yes. Yeah.
That he was saying the most abhorrent, terrible stuff, but it was so well done that you had to give him props, because he was such a wordsmith, and he still is a wordsmith.
Such a lyrical genius, though, and
he's still one of my favorites in terms of like lyrical comprehension and composure and composition.
Like after I corrupted my parents with watching 8 Mile, and they saw it, and they saw the rap battle, and my dad was in love with it. He was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" And then from that point on, figure out this is just recently. I think this was like 2018 that I showed them that movie, and my mom was like, "Okay, it's not for me," but my dad was like just starting to listen to Eminem like crazy, and then I introduced Dad to what was it, to some of Snoop Dogg stuff, and my dad already loved Tupac Shakur, and he's the one who introduced me to Tupac when I was a kid. So it was so interesting for me to actually get the chance to introduce him to something, because he was always the music person in the house who was introducing everyone to like different music and everything like that. So
that's dope.
I do have to ask though, like, so out of all of the music that you've listened to, like college, during your youth and everything, what are some of the musicians that have stuck with you to this day that you just always go back to?
De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest. Like, there are hip hop folks who I grew up with that are like built into who I am as a being. Like those folks are in that space. Like, Diggable Planets was a big influence in there. Jazzy stuff like Gangstar is a big part of that. Like there's so many different artists who were in that mix during what I still believe is like the golden era of hip hop. That like the Roots, the beginning of the Roots when they first started, because it was the cool thing about it was in that moment of you were still getting new artists who were both saying something and we're trying other kind of not only lyrical versions of who they wanted to be, but they were playing in a lot of different music spaces that weren't what you think of usual hip hop was. So you had, folks who were digging into jazz and stuff, and you had folks who were digging into kind of like super, super old hip hop, and you had folks who were being experimental and doing other things in spaces. So like those folks were huge for me. And then there was like the R&B layer of it. When I was starting to learn I like girls. And I was like, oh, that's what these songs, these songs like girls like this? Oh, okay, I like this too now. Okay, I'm gonna listen to this stuff. So it was like those layers too of like, trying to learn about what it was like to be a young gent and trying to understand like what people liked. So it was like all of those infusions and inspirations are so important to me. I can't listen to a lot of new stuff because it's just that good.
It's that this is where I have to say it, like, so it's so funny to me. I do have a bit of a story though on Twitter, and this was like a few years back. I got called anti-black for not liking mumble rap.
I'm anti-black too.
I listened to it for the first time like in 2018, and I was like, I can't understand what they're saying. I sound old at this point, but it's like I can't like the beat is the only good thing about it.
I'm a lyrics person. Like I've always been a lyrics person. Like, of course, like I listen to. Okay, here's a good question for you. How do you listen to music for the first time? Because I have a very specific way that I do it. Do you listen to the entire album? Do you skip through things? Do you like listen to certain parts for lyrics or for music? How is the way you kind of think about music listening for the first time?
So I didn't really kind of conscientize it until I listened to the new Sleep Token album that they just came out with. I think it was like, oh gosh, Ashes of Eden? No. Eden something. I'm forgetting the name of it right now, but it was the most recent album that they came out with. And I remember a lot of music YouTubers were going through and doing a listening party and everything like that. And I picked out a couple of songs, because now what I'm realizing what I'll normally do is I'll pick out a few of what their singles are and listen to those and get like an overarching idea of what the album is going to be like. So then after that, I'll go in and I'll listen, and I'll carefully listen to all of the songs, get a feeling for the words, and then do a listen back and get a feeling for the music.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do that. I think for most hip hop that's new, I will listen for beats first for the musicality parts and do a quick skim through. Cause at some point, and I think sonically there are just parts of some sounds that you're just like, instantly you're just like, ooh,
yes, yeah,
what is that? Ooh, that feels different. That feels, like attuned to you in a like body, mind, soul way. And then I go back and I will go listen to lyrics. And usually that's when the songs fail me. Because I'm like, you didn't say nothing in here. You just said a whole bunch of nonsense and you made it sound almost okay across these. So I'm a really weird, like, people hate to listen to music, like listening sessions with me. Because I skip. I'm like, nah, nope, nope. If you don't catch me in the first 10 seconds, I'm like, whatever. And then I'll go back, and if there's something there later, I'll go back and try to listen to find those. But like, because I know lyrics aren't the thing anymore, beats are the thing that I'm like, ooh, that sounded cool. What was that?
Yeah, no, exactly. And like for me, it's because like one of my hobbies is music production. So I'm always looking for something that sounds unique, but not like, the average, like, oh, it's Billie Eilish sounding or something like that. I want something that's actually going to make me feel something. Because before, and I don't know if some of you guys know this, actually, you're listening right now. Before I got into gaming journalism, I was going to be a musician. I was also almost signed as a musician back when I was like 22, 23 years old. And it ended up being a scam. I could do like a story time on it or something like that at some point. But it ended up being a scam. And I was just like, I don't like the way the music industry runs. It's just slimy and everything. And it got to a point of where like music for me is something that is so cleansing for me. Like the most stuff that I gravitate towards is Sleep Token, Mariana's Trench, 30 Seconds to Mars, Broadway, anything. Like I am a Broadway nerd. Or death metal. I absolutely love death metal. And oh my gosh, what was it? Tupac, Eminem, Snoop Dogg, and oh my god, why am I forgetting his name right now? DJ Khaled. I just started listening to his stuff about 3 years ago, and I fell in love with his stuff.
Yeah. There's a couple of folks who I think you might like. Some of my personal favorites are an artist named Odyssey, who I love. He's like so smart and musically just brilliant. There's another MC called Homeboy Sandman, who I love. He's so good. K Tronada is fantastic, who's brilliant. He makes just like good, like kind of clubby music, but like vibe out clubby music. Like very, very chilled out, like good. You can listen to it in a club, you can listen to it at home kind of stuff. And there's a couple other artists who I've been poking through and kind of just like listening to of late. But it was funny because right before we started recording, I was listening to some stuff that I had in a playlist, and oh man, these are old school good stuff.
Yeah, there is just some of that stuff that's just like it's good. It's good for the soul.
Yeah. I can't listen to most of the new stuff because most of the new stuff is bad. I'll just be honest about it. I'm like, you said the same thing that this other person said about popping your butt in the air and stuff. I don't care.
Yeah, like it's just like, okay, cool. You want to, get stuff done and do certain things with someone.
Yeah.
That's fine. Just, I don't want to listen to it.
Yeah, right? Like, that's cool. I understand what you want to do.
I don't want to part in it.
But I don't care. I'm like, I don't want to know. So yeah, I feel you on that. That's the stuff that I remember from my childhood, and a lot of that stuff is in a real way.
You see, I love that. And that's the same thing, like with the band Him, that was one of the first metal bands I ever listened to. Like when I was a kid, I remember hearing the song Love and Death Embrace, and there was something so sonically and something so wonderful about that. Like every generation is going to have their moments of where like, oh, why is this popular? Why is this? And my parents were like, I don't get why she likes this, but we'll let her do her thing. And my dad was like, this is just a phase. She's not going to like metal in 2 or 3 years. At 32, I still love metal. I love death metal. I showed my dad actually, oh my God, what was it? Lorna Shore for the first time. And he almost collapsed. He was like, why is this guy squealing like a pig? What happened? Words.
Where's he going? What's he doing? Is he okay? Eclectic version of her music stuff, because she's from the Midwest, so she listens to a lot of country, and she listens to stuff that I would just be like, why do you like this? But then we really cross over on like some hip hop R&B stuff, which is weird because we're around the same age. So those things are interesting. So she was putting me on a Radiohead the other day, and I was like, oh, this is dope. Radiohead's dope. So yeah, I try to steal stuff from her playlist all the time. I'm like, that's dope. I want to hear what is that? What is that thing? So yeah.
But then again, if I'm just sitting down and I'm like writing an article or something, I have like Dark Souls ambient soundtracks in the background or lo-fi in the background.
I try to get into lo-fi, but like lo-fi puts me to sleep. I listen to lo-fi. I do that stuff if I get high. It's a good compliment to that feeling, because like the feeling of music accompanies certain things, and it's like sometimes like that's the vibe out. I'm like, I'm gonna put on YouTube in the background with like 4K psychedelics on this weird music, and then just sit there.
Oh man! Oh, but one of the last topics I want to go into with you is just gonna be a little more of a fun one. I mean, this entire podcast was fun, but you know what I mean. 1,000%. There is one thing of where we all have a game that is attached to us at the hip, like a child, like it's a part of our soul. What is the game that if someone meets you, they would be like, this is the game that is associated with Kahlief?
Journey would be that game, probably. I mean, again, it was like the PS3 era. It was a moment where I understood not only the connection that games can make from an emotional standpoint to you, but not knowing that like you would be traveling with someone and going through that process and then being a part of that person's experience and journey in that game was transformative. Like, because it was one of those really cool moments where I had met this person and we were like, you couldn't talk in those games, you had your scarf, and that was the thing that kind of let people know how long you've been playing and all that kind of stuff. And there was this moment where because you couldn't talk, you could just basically like emote. And you're kind of like leading that person or being led by that person throughout this story of life and death. And it was cool because I didn't know that was a thing that you could do in video games. I didn't know that was a thing that you could really incorporate into the play of what that meant. And I got to the end of that game and I was with this person for my entire playthrough. Didn't know it was an actual human being. And then at the end, where the credits rolled, you get to see whatever their name was, their PSN name at the time. And I was like, oh, that was a person. That's crazy. Yeah. Like, you don't know, because until people understood that was the kind of premise of the game. Because I went into that game without knowing, and then finding out that was a person who was like leading me through, the journey of that game and getting to the end of it, and you kind of ascend to what is heaven in that game. And then seeing their name scroll up with that person's, being like, here was the person, your co-traveler. I played that game and didn't do anything else but lead people for the rest of the time I played it. So it wound up being a thing where I would wait until somebody else would spawn into the game and sit there and hang out and then lead people through the experience as well. And that was transformative. I like the folks from that game company, Genova Chen and Robin Haneke and all the folks who made that game. Like Robin Haneke, who's is a person that a lot of people know in the gaming space and have known for a while. Like, I remember seeing her and going up to her at GDC when I went to my first GDC. Very meek and very like, I'm nervous because I don't know who these people are and if they're cool or not. And I went up to her and I was like, you have changed my life in the way that this game has kind of, it touched me in that way. And she was, I'm sure other people had shared that with her, but she was amazingly kind and we became friends and it got cool. And it wound up being one of those moments where I was like, this is what video games can do. And it was beautiful. And it was something that I don't know if I'll be able to recreate that moment. But like, that's the reason I'm doing this stuff, is because games can do that. And that's cool. So like, that was fun. That was cool. It was amazing. It was still a moment that I think about now. Good moment. I was so innocent then. It felt like games were innocent then. It felt like experiences were innocent then. It felt like the space was like in a way just like kinder and thoughtful and still trying to figure its way and was like growing up alongside me. and it was beautiful. It's a moment that I wish people could still have for the first time and really, embrace what that was. It was good.
That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with me. I really love that so much because it's it's similar to how I felt playing Resident Evil 1 remake for the first time. I remember kind of dragging my dad over when I was a kid and being like, "Listen, the fireplace, it's crackling in the game," and it's one of those things of where like that game is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing today, and it's such a powerful thing of where you can be put into a story and control the character and go about an entire journey. I think that plus Dark Souls 1 remake, because I think it was 2020 or 2021 I started my Souls journey, and I got so frustrated with those games, Kahlief. Oh my god, I was so frustrated. I was just like, well, I don't know why people like these. I don't know what's going on with it. And then I got up to the boss Smo and Ornstein, and everything changed. Like after I beat that boss, I felt like not only can I do anything in a game, I can do anything I want to in life. Like it's I can be like unstoppable. Like I literally, when I put my mind to something, I could accomplish it. And that's what that game taught me, and it was so powerful.
That's awesome. I love hearing stuff like that. Yeah, it's the reason why I continue to tell people, like, people poo-poo what this industry can do and what the medium can be. And we're still only scratching the surface of what that is. Like, if humans wouldn't continue to fuck it up, we could do some really interesting spaces. We could do some really cool things in space if people would kind of let go of some of the things that they don't need and embrace what you're getting. We leave so many dope stories on the table because people get afraid of telling them for multiple reasons, and people push back against those conversations. So I feel like once we learn the medium can continue to foster, we're going to just get some really, really cool moments that we'll be able to kind of embrace in this lifetime, right? Like, we're really going to be here for a small amount of time. So, like, why are we not enjoying? So I agree with that. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So to end off on, I would say, a wholesome note, what are your accomplishments that you want to see for yourself happen this year? What are you manifesting? What do you want to do this year?
Manifesting, we have a couple of things in the works. I have a couple things in the works. We're trying to get Spawnies back off the ground. We missed a year, sadly, because financial hardship. We couldn't afford to build it this past year for 2025. So we're going to be doing a crowdfunding campaign to build out the next 2 years of the show. I have a lot of folks who reach out to me all the time. They're like, when is Spawnies? And I was like, Spawnies not happening because we don't have any money. We need money to make the thing as good as I need it to be. That's the manifestation part, is like, I now have gotten to a space where I understand what I want, and I have the idea. I just need the ways to fund it. So that's one thing. Manifesting another show that people haven't heard about yet. There's 2 shows actually that are coming out. One is going to be one that I'm hoping to do that's going to be less about games, still in a kind of interview format, but more about connection to each other. And I want to talk to smart people about the real world. And I think that, to me, is a thing that I care about in a real way, because I feel like we're in a space where the world is getting dumber and content is getting dumber. And I want to find a place where I feel smart again. I think we lose that sometimes when you're in this space, when you're talking to people about dumb things a lot. You wind up, no one talks about real shit. And I'm like, let's talk about some real stuff. So that's one thing. And then there's another show that's coming up very soon that's going to be a very fun a journey into positivity. That's all I'll say. So it'll be that. I also want to get Spawn on Me on the radio. That's the thing we did a couple years ago, and I want to go back to that. I want to get Spawn on Me onto television in some form or fashion, so like Hulu or something like that. And I gotta lose weight just to keep my body right, and I want to do some other stuff that's like not in the spaces that I usually occupy. I love sports. I love talking about horror. I love talking about other things besides gaming, and this is a beautiful ability to do that with you today. So like, I want to do more of that. I want to do more of that stuff. More having conversations about the things that we love that are not just the thing that we're known for. Like that's cool.
Exactly.
You know?
Like for me, I love fashion. Like I don't really get to talk about it that much.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1,000%. Yeah. Manifest that. I love that. For sure.
So like for a few things that I'm manifesting for this year is to get more of my health under control and everything like that, because there are some diagnoses that I'm currently looking forward to and everything. I'll leave it at that. But I'm really excited just to see myself grow and to see myself achieve things that I really past me could only dream about, and now I'm actually like I have the cojones, as they say, to go after. You know, so like my first goal, and I'm going to clip this part and actually tag Greg and Mike in it, is to be a video editor for any content that Kind of Funny would potentially need. I would love to be able to get the opportunity to do that. Manifesting that. I also want to be able to get other folks on the podcast. Like I want to be able to get James Marsters, who played Spike in Buffy, on the podcast at some point.
Yes. Gotta do it.
Like I would love to do that. And another thing I would love to be able to do is to be able at some point, I am working on it. It's an idea. It's just a concept at this point. But all the reviews that I do, I want to make them into like movies. I want to be able to have settings where I'm actually placing myself in the atmosphere of the game and doing the review kind of on location to a degree.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I love that.
Yeah. So I might be doing a crowdfunding for something like that, just to test the waters and see, let me film one episode, let me go all out, let me fund it, let me do all of this. That way people can get an idea. And if they like it, I'll film more of them.
Yeah, that's rad. I love that. That's a great, I'm dying to see what that's like that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. But
awesome.
Kahlief, you are always an absolute joy to have on the podcast. Seriously, from my heart to yours, I am so grateful that I've gotten the chance to talk with you and have you as a friend in my life.
I am blessed as well to have you in my life and as a friend, and and hopefully future collaborator to do some cool stuff. And seriously, it does my heart good to see you continue to push and continue to figure out good ways to grow and to think about what you want to do and manifest all those things that I know are going to happen. You knock down every door that is in your path, so that I know those things will happen. And thank you for sharing space today. Like it always means a lot to have good folks in the circle, be excited to talk and talk about all they like and they care about. So thank you so much for having me and for letting me rock.
Oh, of course. And if you guys like our faces and what we do, that's actually the wrong outro for, because this is a different channel that this is going on. That's the wrong outro. Son of a bitch. You know what? I Jesus Christ. I swear to everything unholy. My gosh.
Amazing.
But I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. There are so many more podcasts that are coming out. I have a podcast coming out with my friend Miss Bubbles. She is going to be talking about the cozy games industry. There's just so many different podcasts that are going to be coming out. So I hope you guys have a good one. Make sure to take care of yourselves. Love one another. May life treat... Help!
That's what I should have roasted you for. Can you get an outro out? Jesus. No, I'm just playing.
No, my ass was laughing. I'll get the outro as soon as you get that fart in the background out of there.
Get the fart outros out. Jesus.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Amazing.
But may your coffee treat you well and life give you a nat 20. I will see you all in the next one. Bye, you guys.